I want to keep this a fun discussion because that's what, Terry always was. But, Terry writes in here about how he transitioned from newspaper to radio and getting together with you and the Score Originals. What do you remember about that time and what you knew, how well you knew Terry Boers at the time, what you knew about him, and what made it work once you guys started working together?
Thanks, Adam. Terry and I became fast friends in February of '88 when I was producing Chet Kopic's show on the old AM loop, the nighttime show between 7 and 10. Chet was going to be taking some time off, and he suggested I bring Terry in as a substitute host to be my co-host. And I had no business hosting. I was 26 years old, and I'm following Steve Dahl and Gary Meyer with zero hosting experience. I'd been a reporter, but I'd never hosted a show. And I sounded an awful lot like Chet. It wasn't that I wanted to, just what I heard every night for 3 hours. And Terry eventually broke me of that. It was a fast friendship as well as a very comfortable partnership because we were opposites, and I think opposites do attract in a lot of ways. In the winter, he was the Bulls guy, I was the Blackhawks guy, and that worked well in the early 90s because both teams mattered. The Bulls were winning 6 titles in 8 years, and the Hawks won a President's Cup in 91 and then got to the Stanley Cup final the next year in 92. I like football. He likes baseball. I like the Stones. He likes the Beatles. We were good opposites, and Terry was willing to be led. And I think that's a quality that you don't find in many radio hosts when they are converted from the newspaper world. To be willing to be led was a tremendous strength of Terry's. And he let me take him usually where I wanted to go. He would rein me in if he felt I needed it. But Terry gave me a lot of space to be the quarterback, and I think our show flourished largely because that chemistry was so natural. It wasn't forced. You can't really force chemistry. It either is there or it isn't. And we had it. And we were both very, very disappointed when the station broke us up in August of '99 because we felt we still had unfinished business together. We'd not been on the air to enjoy a full-time frequency. You remember, before it was 670, it was 1160 on the AM. That was only for about 2 years. And that was a worse frequency than 820. We advertised ourselves as now being 24 hours, but when it got dark, we powered down and people in the western suburbs lost the signal. You can't say you're 24 hours if the good people in the western burbs can't get you. We never got a chance to enjoy the 670 frequency together. So that was disappointing. But, I went back there in '09 to partner with Matt Spiegel for 5 very eventful years, not all of them good. And then again with Danny Perkins between 18 and late 20. So I was lucky enough to get a few shows in with Terry on that last day there. The program director, Mitch Rosen, was nice enough to let me do some reunion shows, and we had a blast. We really enjoyed our time together.
Well, I want you to know that, that was the time period that I worked there and produced, and was very fortunate to do a lot of the Friday remotes on the Who Needs To Tavern Tour, kind of as the third producer. But I remember those times, even though you weren't working on the same show, all those transitions that you guys did together, and to hear that chemistry come through and some of that opposite you're talking about attracting. One of my favorite moments that I wanted to bring up with you since you were on today, you really wanted Chicago to get the Olympics. And Dan and Terry were totally against it. And I believe the news came out that right before you guys, when they did the voting and transition that day, and Chicago got smoked. It was, they were it was obvious that they weren't even really in the running when it was all said and done. And that, I don't know if you probably didn't feel it in the moment, But I just want you to know as a listener, because I remember driving down the highway, that transition was some of the best radio, most hilarious radio I've ever heard, because you and Speegs, I think, were upset about it, and Dan and Terry threw a party and just rubbed it right into your face. But for whatever you're feeling in that moment, whatever you remember of it, it was phenomenal radio, and I have fond memories just thinking about times like that.
I'm glad you liked it. It wasn't fun for me. Spiegel had a great nickname for Boers and Bernstein. He called them the freight train of hate and indignation. And that was a good example. As soon as we threw it to them on their live broadcast, Bernstein starts cackling. He was so happy. He just laughing in our faces. And that was the nature of the differences in those two shows. Matt and I tried to be positive more often than not, and Dan and Terry like to pee all over everything.
But you know what? I think part of that, I think, comes out that I don't know how people who didn't know Terry thought of him, to be honest with you. But really, once you got to know him, he was one of the sweetest people I've ever come across in the business. And, you know, we exchanged emails for a while after he retired, and he was just, I don't know. To me, he was always great. I loved working with him. Is that how you remember him more, you know, just even off the air you knew him better than I did.
Yeah, he was a very easy guy to be around. He wasn't for everybody on the outside, but for people who worked with Terry, I'd struggle to think of a guy in station history who was more popular in the hallways than he was. And that's hard to pull off because we're all screwed up and we all want to be the man, really. I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to be the guy. But Terry wasn't wired that way so much. And Terry was usually very upbeat. Always the funniest guy in the room. Every day was a different adventure with him. You had no idea what he'd have up his sleeve, and it was a joy to work with him. And he was, in many ways, the big brother I never had when I was still kind of wild in my early 30s. He grabbed me by the shirt collar figuratively a time or two and said, "Hey, man, you got kids. Slow down a little bit here." And he was right. He was 100% correct. And I trusted him. He trusted me back. He attended both of my weddings. I attended 2 of his sons' weddings. And I will miss him forever. Even though we haven't been very close these last couple of years, I know I will miss Terry forever.
Well, Mac, at the risk of, being slightly inappropriate as far as the topic of conversation, a lot of people were just talking about Terry's legacy in Chicago, and everyone has their opinion and who their favorites were. And I was bantering about it in text yesterday as, who would you say is the greatest person to do it in Chicago radio? And I grew up on Chet. I called Cop of God Sports. I called the Doug Collins Show. I screamed at Chet because he was saying Magic Johnson was better than I wanted to kill him. I mean, really wanted to kill the guy. But it made an impact. And I grew up also listening to GN and Cap and Wall and Sports Central at that time. I thought that was a fantastic show. And then my internship at the Score was on the morning show with Sharon Memolo, and I was cutting tape on whatever the reel-to-reel machine was. And I got to witness you guys and Jiggets and North, and that was stuff that I had never seen, the way they would just stare at each other. There was an energy to that station in the old bunker that I've never seen duplicated anywhere else. But and you've had your own, we don't, need to go through your whole career, but you've had your, the top of the mountain and the volatility and all of it. But I personally think, and I've worked with a lot, and I don't know you as well as I know some of these guys, but I would put you at the top of the mountain, Mac. I really would, for everything that you did here. So I think, as you get in your elder years, just somebody who's watched it from the beginning, and I wasn't a hockey guy, and I wasn't as big of a football guy back then. I wanted you talking more MJ and everything else. Like, just the greatest player who ever played anything's in the city. Talk about him nonstop. But I would still put you there. So I want to thank you for the experience listening, man. It was a good time.
Carm, thanks. It was a special energy at that radio station in the early to mid 90s into the latter part of the 90s too. We were the little engine that could. We were the underdogs, you know. I mean, a lot of people thought we'd fall on our faces. We had a shoestring budget initially. The radio station initially it cost Diamond Broadcasting $800,000 to get the 820 frequency up and live. And none of us were making any money that first year. North and I were both making $50,000 our first year. Now that changed for him very, very quickly, for me soon after. But it was an all hands on deck mentality, and we fought among ourselves. But I think if outsiders were to pick a fight with us, we'd all rally around each other, and it certainly was a very exciting time in my career. And thank you for your kind words about whatever I might have accomplished. I look at it like this. I mean, when you talk to the veteran consumers of our business, people who've been listening to sports talk and or participating in it for 30 plus years, when you ask them what are the great shows, what are the Mount Rushmore shows, Terry Boers gets mentioned on 2 shows. There's not many guys who do. Boers and Bernstein are mentioned, and the Heavy Fuel Crew gets mentioned. So I think he has cemented his legacy in capital letters.
There's
yeah,
no
but
doubt.
that means you're in 2 as well, because Mac Yurko and Harry
No doubt.
I mean, is right up there. But I totally agree with all that. And Mac, I know you know this, but just having been around you guys, even sort of on the periphery, reading even over the weekend again, because I've read Terry's book multiple times now. Just every time he mentions you, it's obvious that he cared a lot about you, and you meant a lot in his life. And we're gonna miss him. That hit me hard Friday, and I'm sure I know it did for you too over the weekend. So Mac, thanks for coming on with us. We really appreciate it.
Mac, the pictures of the 2 of you at a young time when you were both not in peak shape, I'll always remember those. A 30-year-old enjoying yourself, having a couple cocktails, having a couple steaks. There were some beauties that were around at the time. So, at any rate, we appreciate it, and let's talk Bears this coming year. All right.